Welcome to Imperfect Genius, the podcast that provides technical advice on effectively navigating the business development journey and offers advice on building successful careers in the tech industry. I'm your host, Rachel Foster, a tech professional, educator, and entrepreneur. And today I have with me Micah Logan. Micah is a serial entrepreneur and host of the Common Sense Show on the Alive Podcast Network. Micah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I appreciate it. Ready to get going.
Yeah, so I want to catch the audience up a little bit. So before this episode airs, I'm going to put out the episode that we did the actual live from. I'll put that out on my feed. So hopefully people have heard that already and they've heard a little bit about, like sort of our back and forth. But I just want to say for people who haven't heard it yet, so we did a live stream for the Alive Podcast Network because we're both on the Alive Podcast Network. So we did a live stream called a Live Prompt the other week, and even though we went a solid 90 minutes, I think it was a little over 90 minutes, even though we went a solid 90 minutes, you teased, you had more to say, basically. And you teased the thing about this 1% chance of a trademark. And trademark is the thing I've been talking about on this podcast for a while. I had a couple of different episodes about my trademark journey, which, again, people can go back and listen. It's a long, long, long story. But so you teased this thing about your lawyer told you had a 1% chance of getting this trademark. And I asked you about it and you're like, nope, we got to record another episode. We got it. No, I'm not going to tell you now because it's already been 90 minutes. So we got to get together. We'll record another episode. So here we are. Now I need to know. Tell me about this 1% chance of getting this trademark.
Okay, I lied. It was really a 2% chance, not one. But
okay, you know what? We can just end the podcast right now because now I know, it's not even interesting. What 2% is still same? Okay, yeah, exactly. 2% chance. Let me hear it. So wait, give me the background first. I want to understand. I like to hear the whole story.
Wow, the whole story, huh? So
wait. Okay, we have a limited amount of time. I do have a hard stop. We can't go for 2 hours, Mike.
I was born at 8:42. November 17th. So you mentioned I'm a serial entrepreneur in my introduction, and part of that is having run different companies over the years that I founded. One of them was a health and fitness business that I sold in 2023, but I had the grand idea of turning to a franchise back in 2020. Which takes a lot of work to get franchise ready. I was largely franchise ready from the systems and processes end because that's my thing. That's what I do. But from the IP sense, you have to have a trademarkable name and brand and logo and presence and et cetera, to be able to franchise properly. Right. And the thing is that your name, your logo has to be protectable in all 50 states to properly franchise, right? So for instance, I could have the Imperfect Genius podcast by Micah, right? And maybe if I ran that podcast in Oregon, it doesn't make a big difference. But once I want that podcast to be a nationwide thing, and I'm coming to Georgia, now it becomes a problem because you have the Imperfect podcast in Georgia, right? So that's the same thing with franchising, right? You have to be able to protect your IP so that neither you nor your franchisees get sued when you are going through the process of securing your IP, right? So franchise is about passing on systems and processes, but it's also about ultimate protection of IP. Your brand is everything.
Right.
So I hired a firm,
an
IP firm. They do both IP litigation and registering of trademarks, copyrights, et cetera, et cetera.
Let me pause you for 1 second. For those in the audience, and again, if they've been listening for a while, they know what IP is, but just in case people don't know, IP is intellectual property. I've said it a million times on this podcast, but just always, I never know. It could be somebody's first time listening. Okay, sorry.
Sure. Go. No, it's good clarification. And, intellectual property includes things like copyright. So copyright work, it could be a book, it could be a logo, it could be the name of a company, et cetera, et cetera. It also includes trademarks, patent, there's a bunch of stuff that goes with it.
Right.
So I hired a firm to do research on a name. So let me take 2 steps back before we do the research. So I convened a focus group when I realized that I wanted to create a solid brand that could go nationwide. I convened a focus group of my customers who were already engaged in purchasing me to pick the name that the company would change to. I could have hired some marketing firm that would have given me marketing analytics and let me tell you why that your name hits, all these, marketing G spots. It doesn't. The reality is that your name is going to be directly tied to who your customer is. So I want my customers to pick it. It's the community upvote, downvote stuff that Apple has built $1 trillion business on, which is community involvement in their business processes, right? As you know, in tech.
Yes.
So that's kind of where it started. So we came up with a name. It was a name. It was a one-word name. It was called Meld. One-word name. People were like, hey, I just worked out at Meld. They were like, they like it because it's a word, it's short, it kind of means something, community focus, blah, 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 blah. The logo was created by my graphic designer, and the whole brand was created around this new kind of change of name. And then the brand design templates and the brand I can't remember it's like it was like a brand kit that was produced
Brand kit,
for the franchise that would become the template for how
all that stuff. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And then even like how selfies and photos of for social media would be handled. There was a very specific way so that could be on brand too. So we created everything specifically for franchisees so they would know where to take photos in the facility, how to take them, what they should look like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And brand messaging and voice and all that stuff.
Message, voice, tone, post, the whole thing. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
So we passed the point where we have what we want. I then took that to a law firm that I hired to do this to get this thing locked in with the USPTO, right? U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
Right.
So they do the search, they come up with results, and they have a system that gives you it's a triage system, for lack of a better word, that gives you red, green, and yellow results when it gives you the result for your specific trademark, the potentiality for trademarking. And the name that I had came up as bordering between yellow and green. And here's the reason why. Because there was a company at the time, I think it's still in business, called Melt, M-E-L-T.
Okay.
And we were Meld, M-E-L-D. Now, lawyers are famously known for being overly cautious.
Yes.
And overly hindrant when it comes to progress.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
And so they were like, well, here's the thing. I don't think that, and here's where the line comes from. They were like, well, it's very similar to this. It's in the same space because it was like a fitness instruction. But they sell like products and informational stuff. I was selling franchises and maybe products eventually that would be white labeled, but like it wasn't the exact same thing. They thought it was like too similar, not too similar, but similar enough where if we went really big, we could cause an issue later. So I was like, listen, my customers chose this name. This is what the name's going to be. How do we get the name? That's all I want. I don't care about your nihilism, about how the world works and why this won't work. I want to know how we get this name.
Wait, let me ask this. Wait. So you said it was borderline between yellow and green. That was 2%? What is red? Get to that part like yet. Negative percentage?
It is.
Okay.
Nihilistic lawyers.
Yeah,
right?
Clearly.
That's the job. The job description for a lawyer is nihilism. That's kind of what it is.
Clearly.
So, okay. I said, I want this name, full stop. This is the name. This is the name, buddy. Like, this is what I want. So, he said to me, okay. I said, how do I get this name? He said, this is how you get the name. You have to go to this company, Melt, who had already been in existence for like years. right? They've been selling all over the country, blah, blah, blah. Courses, they certify people in a certain kind of stretching or some such, like whatever. I don't know what they did exactly, but he's like, you have to go to them and you have to get their permission. And like to give yourself the most protection, I would get a coexistence agreement with them. So that they're completely fine with you being in the market and they can't come back later and say, well, we, you know, I don't want to deal with this and like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I said, okay. I said, what are the chances that this coexistence agreement thing is going to work? And he said, it's 0% chance if you don't do it. Well, it's a 2% chance that it would actually work.
Wow.
I said, 2%? I went back to Dumb and Dumber. I said, so you're telling me there's a chance, right? That's all I need. All I need is 2%, Rachel.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, 2%.
2%.
And so go ahead.
I was gonna say, and so you went. So did you go to Melt? You were Melt. Did you go to Melt? Did you prepare a plan of how you were going to sell them on this coexistence?
Yeah, there was one plan. Tell them my story. So here's what I did.
Okay.
I searched for the CEO of Melt.
Okay.
3 email addresses popped up.
Mm-hmm.
I did this the afternoon of the day that he told me 2%.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 email addresses popped up. I took all 3 email addresses. I put them all in BCCs with my email address as the 2. So as, you know, because who knows? I don't want to be selling like 3 different people.
Right.
And with the I think the subject line was, I have a question about Melt and I need your help. Something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote the email and my email said, hi, my name is Micah Logan. I'm looking to franchise my business. The name is Meld. My attorney, my IP attorney, thought that my name and your name were very similar, but I can assure you that I have no interest in competing with you in the space that you're competing in. I just want to sell franchises to people who want to own great businesses. I said, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am, however old I was at the time.
Right.
And I said, you know, this is where I grew up. This is what I've done with my life. This is what I do. I have 2 kids, married, blah, blah, blah. Like I took her through the whole story. I just told her my story.
Yeah.
And I sent it off into the void. 2 hours later.
2 hours later. Okay. Wow. Okay. 2 hours later. I'm listening.
I get an email
I was like
back.
Prepared for like months later, but go ahead.
2 hours.
Uh-huh.
I get an email back from this lady, from the CEO of Melt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this should be a problem at all. I have no issues. Let me just talk to my attorney. She said, if you're willing to pay for my attorneys to put together this coexistence agreement, then I don't see a problem with it at all. 2 hours later.
Seriously. And wait, and she offered that her attorneys were going to put the coexistence together.
And I would pay the fee. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say because cost. I'm like, wait a minute. So she's even gonna pay for to create. Okay, but you were gonna pay the fee. Okay.
No, but like I was like, I'll take that deal.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, because they're gonna write it to slant it in their favor, but still, if they're gonna do the work and you don't have to pay your lawyer to start from scratch, because they probably, well, I don't know that they would have already had something like that, but.
Well, my lawyer was already retained, right? So that money was already spent. Her lawyers were not retained by me, but they needed to put together this agreement. So all I did was actually her attorneys asked me to put together the coexistence agreement, and they would just redline it where necessary.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
We put together the coexistence agreement. I paid them to review it. They made almost no changes, no meaningful changes at all to the agreement. And the coexistence agreement was signed between her and I, which I still have right now. And we sent it off to the PTO. Trademark was issued. No challenges.
How big was this company at the time, Melt?
It was definitely a nationwide company. They were selling products, education, services, and maybe even international. She does a lot of speaking, a lot of, dealing with people who were in the health and fitness industry. But I didn't ask revenue size. I didn't ask all those questions. I just told my story to her.
Yeah.
Told her what I was trying to do
Yeah.
and what the impact I was trying to have on the people who would buy my businesses was.
Right.
And she accepted the challenge.
And how much longer, because the trademark process takes a while. So what, a year later, you've got the whole, you've got the approval from the USPTO.
A year later, yep, absolutely.
Okay. And then, so tell me more about, because I want to talk about sort of the value of having that trademark. But so tell me more about what happened with this franchise and so now you've got the trademark, and so now you start franchising, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I got the trademark, and the funny thing is that in some states it requires a trademark for you to even sell franchises.
Oh, wow.
In some states, it does not require a trademark for you to sell franchises. Mm-hmm. It depends on the state.
Okay.
The FTC regulates franchising in the United States. However, there are state level requirements that can make the process of registering your business more onerous or less onerous. The FTC has kind of overarching broad 30,000 foot view guidelines for franchises in the United States, and they are very, very generous, for lack of a better term. The states can make it really hard to operate a franchise. As an example, if you want a franchise in California, they're going to ask you for a certain amount of audited financials to your company that may cost you like $5,000 to $6,000 to even get. They're going to ask you for a certain amount of disclosures that other states may not ask you for. They're going to ask you for certain protections for franchisees that certain other states might not ask you for. On and on and on the regulations go, i.e. California, and it's going to be like, that's what it's like doing business there.
Well, and I mean, because you have to prepare the UFOC, the Uniform Franchise Offering Circular, or because I know I used to own a franchise, and I remember this big, thick binder of a book that had all of the financials and had all the history. Like, it was basically what a potential franchisee would read in order to decide whether or not your franchise was a worthwhile investment. So I imagine that even though, like, you're right, that California makes everything more difficult, but even if you weren't trying to operate in California, I feel like, is it not a rule that you always have to do a UFOC? Like, so I feel like you're having to put all that together anyway. It wouldn't matter what state you were going into. You still got to do all that work.
So the UFOC was replaced by what's called a franchise disclosure document. That's the updated version of the UFOC is called the FDD now, or the franchise disclosure documents.
Okay.
It's the same concept, right? There's 19 items, or technically 23 items in the FDD. The thing that everyone looks at, of course, is item 19, which is the financials of the company.
Right.
Some states don't require you as a new franchisee within your first 3 years to put in financials if you're a brand new franchise in your item 19, the financial history of the company. However, some states require it.
Okay,
right?
Gotcha.
So for a person like me who generally is organized with finances with my business anyway, it's not a big deal to put in my profit and loss, which is what. Well, you don't have to put your profit and loss statement in there. You definitely don't want to put your loss in there. And the reason why is because everyone's thing is different. There are different ways that you can represent your numbers in your item 19. Some of them are kind of what the average per transaction was for your location, kind of what it did. But you don't want to, the more you put in that item 19 to show a franchisee, the more critical, the more you might put yourself or make yourself open to other issues, because especially if a franchisee is not performing like yours is on the expense side. So they kind of actually discourage you from putting expenses in there. And I don't really see a problem with it, but whatever. Yeah. It all depends on who your franchise team is and kind of what they think about that.
Gotcha. And so I'm sorry, go ahead. You were gonna say.
No, the state rules around the FDD are and disclosures in the FDD are all different. So that's why in California, what they require you to disclosing an FDD and some other disclosures are different than, let's say, Texas, where it's $25 and you're good for life.
Oh.
Literally.
Wow.
And then in Illinois, much like California, much like New York and Maryland, those are like the strictest states when it comes to what you put in, what disclosure are required, what audited financials are required by a CPA that has a stamp in the US and can actually put them in. So it's all different, you know?
Okay. So now this is a franchise that you eventually sold, right?
Yes.
So
The whole company.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The whole company, yeah, in 23.
Okay. So you sold the whole company. So how long did it operate? How many franchisees did you have? And where I'm trying to get to, because in one of my trademark episodes, I talked about regrets and whether or not I would have done what I did with my trademarks for this brand or whatnot. But I talked about the fact that trademarks are an asset to the business. They're literally a depreciable asset on the books, and it plays into the value of the company when you sell it. The more trademarks you have, the more you can charge for the company. It's literally, again, an asset. So I just want to know. So I want to know a little bit more about the history, but I want to know about how that trademark impacted the bottom line when you sold the company.
So, okay, so as you mentioned, yes. So like the value of the trademark is directly proportional to its position on the market. You typically have to have a valuation done of a company and your IP as part of the sale to understand what the intangible asset rate is for that trademark, right? So there are hard assets or tangible assets, and then trademarks are what's called intangible assets, but that doesn't mean that they don't have value, right? They just can't be touched, felt, right? But they are solid in terms of like the fact that there's a legal process to get them going. Intangible assets are tricky because investors may weigh them differently, right? The brand, like the logo of Apple, Microsoft, Meta, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi, those intangible assets are worth billions of dollars, right? Which is why if you're in tech and you just happen to be a fruit that's not Apple, you're probably going to get a letter from Apple to protect their IP. Their IP is so strong.
Don't talk to me about letters from Apple. I am, again, this was part of my story because of Genius, right? Don't talk to me. I know about letters from Apple, and you don't even have to have a fruit. Trust me. So anyway, go ahead.
No, you're right. No, you told me about that. No, it was true. But they pretend that's what they do. I mean, they have, their lawyers are literally just searching day to day for breaches of people in their IP. Anything that could degrade their IP. That's how you know that their intangible asset of your trademark is actually really solid. For me, I was considered an emerging franchisor, less than 5 locations, and I was kind of getting started. But at the time, I felt like I wanted to, I had been in the industry for over 2 decades and I wanted to try something different. So I had the grand ideas of franchising. I had gone through the gauntlet, and ironically, I think I just lost steam when it came to me personally wanting to push it. So I wanted to just kind of package it and sell everything together, so that somebody else, if they wanted to choose to build it that way. I mean, it doesn't mean I won 2 awards because people saw the value in what I built. I won in 2022. I won. It was actually 2022 was actually a pretty good year. 2022, I won the. 2021, 2022, I won a what's it called, the top franchising influencer award. Because I was doing podcasts, I was writing, I was building this brand. It started becoming recognized. I started getting eyes on it. I had magazines written about me for Black History Month because I was one of less than 10 Black franchise owners that were minority in the country. And it was an article about blazing the path in franchising. It was me and a couple of buddies I know that were on that list as well. And in 2023, I won the Fantastic Award by FranServe of the 500 kind of best emerging franchisers to watch, to look out for. So like we were trending, but like, I don't know. Again, I just ran out of steam, and I wanted to try something different at this point in my life. I had kind of built it, and then I'm like, I don't know, I guess I was satisfied with just getting it there. And it would take somebody else to kind of get it to get to that 50, 75, 100 location. And I had some good contacts. Like I knew folks that had built franchises and sold them to the likes of like Floyd Mayweather, and people like that. So Yeah, it was not for it. I think it was more of a lack of, and it's gonna sound weird, my desire to want to push. Like it's like a whole nother business and industry going into franchising. So you're starting a whole new business and
Right,
company
right,
doing that.
right.
But yeah,
Are you
so
familiar with Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited?
yes, I have it here somewhere.
So, you know how he talks about, I forget the percentages, but every entrepreneur is there's the entrepreneur, there's the manager, and there's the technician. Like you're some
Right.
percentage of each of those.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like, you were, of course, you were all three of those, but once you got the franchise up and running, you were like the entrepreneur, and you was like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to move on. I don't want to be a manager or a technician. I want to move on and do something different. Does that feel like an accurate assessment of sort of like where you were mentally at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I have yes, I think it is. To answer short, and I think that if I hadn't done it for so long, if I hadn't been in it for over 2 decades, maybe I would have felt a little differently if it was new, if it was newer. But one of I just remember the story. It was a story I had one guy get through the franchise process with me, kind of through the sales process, and I just remember him saying to me, I heard about your brand already before he reached out to me to inquire.
Yeah.
And I said to him, well, what made you, where did you hear about it from? He goes, I heard about it from a family member. And I was like, really? And this was someone in a southern state. Like, it was not like it was like down the street from me.
Right.
And he's just like, yeah, like I had already heard about this like about 6 months ago. And I was thinking to myself that to me was awesome. The fact that it was out there, that people talked about it. I mean, obviously, because I had, the articles were in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like I had already had some traction with what I was doing, but I got joy out of building it, but yeah, you're right about the manager pieces. Okay. That's the other side. And I have no problem building an ecosystem.
Yeah.
But I already built a functional company that was award-winning where I lived and where it was operating. So
yeah, I want to go back to talking about the building the ecosystem. So again, I previously did an episode about franchising, but from the franchisor view or from the franchisee view, because again, I used to be a franchisee.
Sure.
But you talked about how you had built, even before the trademark and the 2% and all that, you had built those systems and processes. Like you had a systemized business that you were like, now I want to go and franchise. Let's talk about building that. Because again, back to Michael Gerber's book, he talks about like, for the people who have not read this book, and I highly recommended it, especially if you're in business or even thinking about getting in business, I highly recommend it. But the gist of it, the TLDR, is that he says, no matter what, you should be running your business as if it is going to be a franchise. Like you should be building those systems and processes so that it's not something different every time. And he does some really great examples in the book. He talks about this hotel that he went to a couple times and it's like, oh, the first time he went, he got the paper and he got this and that and the other, and it was like a great experience. And the next time he went back, he didn't get the paper and he got to it's like you want something that is consistent. So when people keep coming back, they get the same thing over and over again. When you go to McDonald's, you know what the fries are going to taste like. Doesn't matter if you're in Texas or California or Boston or Atlanta, like the fries are going to taste the way the fries are supposed to taste for McDonald's, right? So you have to build systems and processes to be consistent and to provide a consistent product for your consumers. So I want to talk about how did you get to the point where you were ready to franchise, and then what made you decide that okay, now I'm going to go franchise this.
That's a long story. How much time
Okay,
do we
wait.
have? No, sorry, I'm joking.
No, I'm like, wait. Let me check the time. Okay, go ahead.
So it's not easy. So how my brain, you have to understand how my brain works, right? Like I don't, systems and processes, building it so that people can run it and can do it to the T I have a mind palace where I build things like how I want them to run. I start with kind of the simple premises, first order principles. If my company is mature, how would I want it to run as a fully mature business? I mapped out, this is going to sound pretty sick, but when I was building a franchise, I mapped out what my franchise would look like with 100 locations, who would be hired, what their roles would be, what their salaries would be, what their benefits would be, on like a big organizational flow chart and kind of what region of the country that they would manage, what they would oversee, what their function would be. I had job descriptions attached to it and salaries and benefits, like the whole shebang. Like what it
That
looked like
makes
fully
perfect sense
mature.
to me. You said, like, "This is gonna sound sick." I'm like, "That makes perfect sense to me." Maybe my brain is broken too. I don't know. I'm like,
Welcome to the Broken
"Duh."
Club,
I'm like,
the Broken
"Duh, of
Brain
course
Club.
that's what you would do." But anyway, go ahead.
And so, but then you have to reverse engineer that, right?
Right.
Because the reverse engineering piece is kind of where kind of the rubber meets the road. It's like, okay, so in order for me to get here, how many do I have to sell? How many do I have to sell on a regular basis? How many years is it going to take? Like, et cetera, et cetera. But like that, I had to build processes and systems for the franchise business. And then I had to build processes and systems for the business that would be sold as a franchise. So for the business that would be sold as a franchise, I spent years developing and refining how I would deliver my service to customers. And that was from spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars traveling, crisscrossing the country, going to conferences, talking to the best in the world at marketing, whatever their specific kind of expertise was. Yes, in the fitness industry, but like also in if they were, I used to go to conferences that had nothing to do with fitness because I wanted to know, like, who is this person? I would, for 2 weeks before the conference, be thinking about one question to ask, just one, because I didn't need to ask all the questions. I just needed to ask my best question because if I get my best question answered, then I'm good. So I would spend 2 weeks trying to figure out one question to ask the presenter, the person who was the expert, because they often only had time to answer one question and they were short on time. And so I was like, okay, let me do this a different way, right? So like I would go to these conferences, I would have my best question written out, like my best. I would, meaning like I would go over that question 100 times, maybe 200 times, and I would delete it. I would change the words. I would maybe scrap the whole question, reframe it. And so every time I went to a conference, I would just ask that one question. And so once I got the answer to my question, I would then at the end of the day, in addition to all the other strategies I got maybe from the conference that I liked, I would create systems. So as I was traveling, the 3 days I'd be at a conference, the 2 days I'd be at a conference, everybody else is out going to dinner, talking, networking, whatever. I'd be in the hotel room just working on putting the structures in place and then testing them and then refining them. So I would start with a structure that I thought was the highest and best possible solution that I can create as an undeployable strategy, and then I would deploy it, and then I would test it to see against it. And sometimes it worked right away. Sometimes it was terrible and it needed to be refined through practice. And so I did that. And so I did this, and I just did that over and over and over. And so for some of the easier processes, it was just simply down to like, what do we do from the moment we flip the switch on at the beginning of the day to the moment we flip the switch off at the end of the day? Like that's kind of like the easy stuff, low hanging fruit. But like delivery of the service and all the other major stuff around that was more, that process. So it's a little bit geeky.
And how did you know when you were ready? Like, I mean, that, like you say, it was years of refining and coming up with those processes. But how did you know, okay, now I'm ready to actually start selling these franchises?
Because my business was automated. Like I would be away. I was in Hawaii and we were selling memberships and we were selling, it was recurring. Everything lined up, right? You get to the point where, for instance, like I had memberships processing, you see money going into your account every single day of the month being charged automatically. The service is being delivered. Reviews are being written, is all 5 stars. I pop up after 3 months. The place is clean. Reviews are coming, new clients, old clients. I don't know the clients. Like the program is being written. Everything was all automated. All of it. It was like just kind of sitting there, like seeing the money kind of come in. It literally turned into an asset.
Nice.
That was
Very
how I
cool.
knew it became an asset and not a job.
Right. No, that's the pinnacle right there, where it's like, because
Yeah.
again, what's the phrase again? Back to Michael Gerber, he's always saying, working on your business instead of in your business. If you're always
That's right.
working in your business, then you're never working on your business to get to the point where you're getting that freedom. You're buying that freedom for yourself. So I want to the interesting thing about when you started telling the story about the 2%, the 2% chance of getting the trademark, the funny thing was, because like were our roles reversed, I would have never gotten it. Because here's the thing, like it was the extrovert. No, seriously, because like as soon as you tell the story, you're like, so I emailed the CEO, and I'm like, yeah, no, I wouldn't have never. I would have because you're the
I gotta
extrovert, I'm
talk to
the
somebody
introvert.
to get this done.
I'm like, I gotta talk to somebody. Never mind. Like, forget. I mean, like literally, I've literally had this exact thing happen because one of my trademarks, because I got multiple pending. One of my trademarks, I think I told you this story, and I don't know if I told it on the podcast before, but so people heard it before. I don't care. Uh, but so one of mine is for a series of courses that I want to do called "Be Your Own Webmaster."
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, so I have a trademark attorney. She was on vacation when I wanted to. I was literally recording a podcast episode when I was about to say the name of this series of courses, and I was like, and I said it, but then I immediately was like, I need to trademark that before I publish this episode. I was like, I don't want anybody to steal it.
Yeah.
So, but she was on vacation, so I literally just like I didn't want to do it on my own, so I just like did like and not to besmirch the name of Rocket Lawyer, but I just like I'm just gonna do a quick Rocket Lawyer trademark thing or whatever because my trademark attorney was on vacation. I was like, I don't have time to wait. I need to publish this episode. So anyway, and the guy who did it, he did a bad job and he messed it up. And so I got an office action. And it was basically they were like, you're not gonna and it was written such that they were like, you're not gonna get this trademark because there was an existing trademark called Be Your Own Master. And I'm like, those are two different, like webmaster and master are two completely different things. There are two nouns in the dictionary that do not mean the same thing. And I'm in tech, and and I'm like, I'm in tech, and webmaster is a very specific thing. It's a very specific role in tech. And I'm like, so I was like arguing that, but the guy, he like basically ghosted me. So my trademark attorney comes back from vacation. Of course, she reads me, for filth for going around her. She's like, why didn't you like why would you try to do this? And so she's like, okay, let me see if I can fix it. And then part of the fixing problem was she wanted me to reach out because they were like the person who had the Be Your Own Master. They weren't doing anything with it. She's like, well, we should do it. I was like, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to make the case that it's not the same thing. I was like, I just want to argue with the USPTO. I don't want to talk to this person.
I gotta talk to him? Oh, forget it.
I'm like, oh no, forget. No, I don't want to do that. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's still in my back pocket as a thing to do because this is ongoing. It's still in my back pocket.
Business is rough for you introverts, I tell you.
What'd you say?
I said business be rough for you introverts.
And seriously, like I don't want to talk to people. It was so funny. Okay, here's a funny thing. I was total side note here, total tangent. I was looking for these t-shirts. I work with this nonprofit that works with young girls, and they're having this Spirit Week next week. And I was like looking for some cute, like kid-friendly t-shirts, but my sense of humor is so sardonic. Like there was this one, we're talking about me like not wanting to talk to people. There was a shirt that said, if words could kill, I would talk more. And I was like, yes.
I like that.
like I was like, I just don't want to talk. There was another one about another like introvert shirt. But anyway, so yeah, I don't want to talk to people. So when you were telling the story, I was like, yeah, I would have never got that trademark because I wouldn't have wanted to like send an email. What? You want to? Do you know how long it takes me to write an email? Because I'm dyslexic. I'm introverted. And I'm like a perfectionist. Like a 3-sentence email might take me 2 hours to write because I'm like, no, wait, no, like get that. Just anyway, yeah. I'm like, I would have never gotten it. I mean, I probably would have. Eventually, I suck it up and I do what I got to do. But that would have not been my first choice. That would have not been my first choice. I was like, yep, I probably wouldn't have gotten that 2%. Like, I would have failed that test.
I kind of live by the, feel the fear and do it anyway. Replace fear with anything. If it's not fear, it could just be uncomfortability. It could be lack of desire, whatever the case is. But like, generally speaking, that fear in that sentence is just synonymous with anything that you don't want to do, anything that's holding you back. Like I've lived by that because that's where frankly, that's where your life changes. It's in that zone where your life changes. It doesn't change close to your chest. It changes like way out here on the fringes, right? Like that's kind of where success is made. And, I didn't know it was going to work. But what did I have to lose?
Yeah. I think there's a famous, like, And it's not a meme, but like, but to your point about like where that's where. Here's the thing: when I was a professor at KSU, Kennesaw State University here in Georgia, one of the professors who was in the office next to me, he had a thing on his board, and it was two circles, and it was like there was a circle, and then there was a circle just on the outside of it, whatever. And he didn't have any words under it, and he would like
Right.
challenge people to try to guess what it meant. But it basically, and then because I was like, I'm not gonna guess, I'm just gonna go figure out what it is. So like, I did a reverse image search, and I found out what, because I'm like, I'm not gonna get, that's too much work. I'd rather just do a reverse image search.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did the reverse image search, basically it was like the big circle was your comfort zone, and the circle that was outside of it was like, it said where the magic happens. Like that's where
Mm-hmm.
the magic happens, is outside of your
Yeah.
comfort zone. It was, so yeah, I think that's a famous thing.
You know, I always think about the first rule of economics. I can't help but think about it. People face trade-offs, right? What am I trading? What is that trade-off? Like, I'm sending the email into the unknown, into the abyss, to a woman I don't know. The trade-off is I don't do it, and she would have said yes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like, I'll take that trade.
Yeah.
Or you could even, if you want to go, if you're tend to be more negative, which introverts are notoriously known for, like,
hey, I don't consider it negative. I consider it realistic.
Exactly.
Anyway, go ahead.
Like, you know, like the worst she could say is, I'm going to call the police. Right? Like, that's probably the worst that she could say, because he's harassing me, asking me these questions.
Right.
I asked you one question, right?
Right.
Chances are the police won't do anything about it. So,
right.
You know, in my lack of infinite wisdom, I was like, all right, I'm going to send it off. Like, I won't get a response. She's going to say no. She's going to say, I'm going to call the police, or she's going to say yes. Yeah. One of those four things.
Yeah.
As long as, so in my head, as long as I do that with everything, right? Like every single thing that is major that I have to do, I try to already predict the outcomes, the responses as best as I can. And then I use that as a measuring stick to whatever the effort is that I have to put in to do something. Right. But that effort is not, in my opinion, a sacrifice. The effort is not a sacrifice. It's required to get to where you want to go. Right.
See, for me, I feel like I'm trying to think. I was gonna say it's, I will do things like that. And what I was originally gonna say is, if it's worth it to me, but that's not the mental gymnastics I go through. It literally just has to just make common sense. So I joked about like, I would have never sent that email, but then, so let me give you an example where I did exactly what you just said, and it seems insane, but I was like, it just made perfect sense to me. There's some sort of mental gymnastics I do. So I'd promised myself when I paid off my mortgage that I was gonna, I was like, I don't need to be in tech anymore. I'm gonna go work at Walmart as a greeter. You know, I'm just like, welcome to Walmart. You know, like, I don't need this money anymore. So I had promised myself I was gonna do that. And so when I paid off my mortgage, I was like, okay, I was leaving tech, and I was at AT&T at the time, and I was like, okay, see y'all, bye. They're like, where are you going? I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to go do something else. Like, I'm just going to go do something else. And they were like, but I was like, I don't need to be here anymore. And so I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I went to a career counselor to try to figure out, like, I hadn't heard of this term called encore career. And there's actually speaking of books, there's another really good book called Designing Your Life, which also talks about like how you can, figure out that, like, those encore careers, or if you're in, younger, your initial career, things like that. And basically it's about using design thinking to apply to your life, where you do prototyping and things like that. Anyway, so I was reading Designing Your Life, and I go see a career counselor to try to figure out, like, what is the next thing for me? What is this encore career going to be? And it brought me back to basically teaching, but I was like, I had owned a franchise where I was teaching in elementary schools and middle schools, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And the guy was like, well, what have you thought about, like, higher education? I was like, oh no, I never thought about that. So I was thinking about teaching, at the university level, and I happen to live like less than 2 miles from a major, like, again, it's like the third largest university in Georgia. They have like a campus, they have satellite campus, and it's like less than 2 miles from my house. And I was like, oh, they're hiring a software engineering professor. I was like, so I'm like, I'm like just sort of like looking at the thing. But rather than just like most people would see the job ad and like, okay, well, let me apply for this job. But I was like, again, I'm having read Designing Your Life. First of all, I'd read the statistics on the percent of the time you actually get a job just by applying to like some random job ad online or whatever, which is like low, something like 7% or something like that. And so I already had that in my head anyway. But also for me, I wasn't sure that this was the right thing for me. So for me, it was, I just need to have a conversation with somebody about whether or not this is a good, fit for me. So I just picked up the phone and called the head of the department. It was like, hey, I saw this job at, like it's for the, Department of Software Engineering and Game Design. I was like, yeah, I saw that you're hiring, da da da, and I'm retiring from tech, and da da da. Here's my history, and da da. And I'm just trying to figure out if this is a good fit. We had like a 35-minute conversation. And by the end of it, and I was like, okay, I think this could work, and she's like, well, go ahead and apply online and then email me to let me know that you applied so I can go pull that application. And, so she's like, had this whole plan. By the time I go in, so I did all of that. And by the time I go in for the interview, she literally just handed me a list of courses and was like, just tell me which ones you want to teach. Like, that was my interview. It was like, wow, which courses do you want to teach? Because I'd already done, like, she already knew who I was. She already knew my background. We'd already had the conversation. So to your point, though, or to what I was saying is, yeah, the introvert in me, like if you just told me that story, I would go, I would never just pick up the phone and call somebody about a job. Like, it's not a thing that would make sense to me. But if in my mind, that's not what I was doing. In my mind, I just wanted more information. I wasn't applying for a job. I wasn't trying to get something out of her. I just wanted more information. So that's one example. And then also when I had my franchise, I remember I went to, it was speaking of Texas, it was based in Texas. And so we'd gone to Texas for, I don't even know how long I was there for all of the training that we had to go through or whatever. And when we were doing the sales training, I was like, I'm going to be terrible at sales. I'm like, I am not a salesperson. Like, because I hate salespeople. Like, I cannot stand for somebody to try to persuade me. Like, just give me the facts and let me make a decision. Let me make an informed decision, but don't try to like convince me of anything. And so I was like, I'm going to be really terrible at this. But turns out I was great at it because I didn't view it that way. Because in my mind, I was just going in because I was selling, we did computer classes in schools, like in elementary schools and preschools and middle schools. And it wasn't just computers, like engineering, robotics, and all that stuff. But in my mind, I'm going in these schools and they have like a computer lab with 35 computers that they don't use all day because their teachers are not trained in computers. And so I'm just going in and talking to these principals or these school administrators about what could happen in there, what they could be doing in their computer lab and what kind of curriculum would make sense. And so I'm just having a conversation about just information. And, by the end of it, they're like, yeah, we need that. So like, and mind you, like I'd been, trained on like spin selling and some other selling techniques, but which technically, theoretically, I was following that. But in my mind, that's not what I was doing. In my mind, I was just giving them information and solving problems that they didn't know they had until we started having this conversation. And then eventually they would make a buying decision. So all that to say, the introvert in me just balks at doing, things like what you talked about, like just emailing somebody to get the thing that you want. But I have to do the mental gymnastics in my head and I don't even know that I'm doing it completely subconscious to just convince myself that, well, this is the thing that makes sense to do. Like, I'm not asking it because it's the idea of asking somebody for something is just, the introvert in me just bought. I remember another example, like when I was a kid, I have 4 older brothers. I remember one time asking my mom for some money for something. This is, by the way, why I started working in tech when I was 15 and never stopped. Because I was like, I was done asking people for money. Anyway, so I asked my mom for some money. She was like, go ask your brother. And I was like, never mind, I don't need it that bad. So, mind you, I was like, I like my brother. It was fine. Like, it was like my favorite brother. She's telling me to go ask. But I was like, no, I'm not going to go ask him for money. It's just, it's a thing that just, it makes the introvert in me just shrivel up. Like, no, I don't want to go have that conversation with that person. So all that to say, when you were telling that story, I was like, I would have never gotten that franchise, or that trademark. But if I had done the mental gymnastics in my head to figure out, well, this is the thing I want to do, and the only way to get there is okay, well, I'll just send the email. Like eventually I would have got there, but it was your first thought. Like it would have been my 50th thought. Like it would not have been my first thought.
I've tried to live my life from a place of contentment. And I think that so many people learn that lesson when they're older in life, like way older in life. And it's some of the regrets that you hear if you've ever heard someone who's 80 or if they make it to 90 or even 100 express that they wish that they found contentment when they were younger as earlier as possible. I actually see kind of your experience a little differently. I see that you were relaxed and comfortable in your space because you were content, and there was so therefore your expectations, your expectations for the outcome were like, they were like, okay, they are what they are,
True.
And if I get this job teaching, wonderful. If I don't, wonderful. But I'm just gonna have this conversation because the outcome is ironically not motivating me to have the conversation.
That's a
And
good point.
I feel like, for me, what I've experienced and what I've kind of recently been thinking about more and more so actually now is when you're in the pursuit phase of life, or when you are trying to pursue things like happiness or joy, and not to sound kind of like esoteric here, but I feel like pursuing happiness, pursuing joy are elusive. And I think that it is a false hope to believe that you can just kind of run towards happiness and joy and grab it somehow, and et cetera, et cetera. You can buy it. I think that contentment should be the highest level pursuit, because there's nothing required when you're content. What's required, the only thing, maybe there's one thing that we required, which is focus on what you have and being okay with that. And the results of whatever your efforts are, not that it doesn't matter, but it just is what it is. And so, like, for me, like, I say that to say that my philosophy is that the result of whatever my efforts are is just, it is what it just is. I expect myself to be the best version of myself that I can be. I'm going to bring whatever the version of myself is, that is the best every time. And I've spent years, decades at this point, pushing myself to educate myself, to learn more, to be around people, to try to continue to learn. I learn every single day. I don't stop learning even now. I learn every single day. I have the ruthless, insatiable desire to learn everything I can. But when I come to someone, I ask them something. When I have a meeting with someone, when I speak to people, it just is what it is. The outcome is what it is. I have no interest in. I do have an interest in achieving the outcome that I hope that I will like. However, I accept if that outcome is not exactly what I want, because there will be another opportunity for me to pursue it somewhere else. It's a kind of a different mindset than you hear today, because everyone, and I think what social media has made this kind of worse, the pursuit of what people think are the pursuit of happiness and joy is something, is like, it's being monetized at the moment, like through social media. And I don't think people understand contentment until there's one day they kind of wake up in their life and they just don't need anything. It's like, I don't particularly need anything right now. Yeah. Could I use more money? Yeah. Could I use more, I don't know, a couple of friends, a rich friend, right? A sugar daddy, maybe. But do I need it? Right? My car works fine. I have a nice TV. I can afford to put groceries in my house, to pay my bills, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's power and acceptance of that. And when you said that you had your pursuit of paying off your house, there's something empowering about taking control of the most significant financial aspect of your life and not being beholden, because that means that you're no longer beholden to pursuing things that require a certain level of effort from you to maintain that specific asset. That is still going to require maintenance, but not to the same level that includes a mortgage payment.
Right.
And so contentment is really the key to, and contentment with, what I mean is contentment with knowing that you specifically are enough. If you want to be better, you should be better. You should pursue mastery. I'm a big fan of mastering whatever you do. But at the same time, you should also be content with where you are, and content with whatever the outcome is, because you're going to get another crack at it. You just will. If you push, you will get another crack at whatever it is that you want. If you push.
Yeah.
You don't have to push hard. Like this whole like wake up at 4 a.m., dunk my head in a cold bowl of water and run like that crazy guy on like the 6 a.m. wake up to 5. No. It is time under tension. Really, what it is, it's just time applied to purpose. It's exercise every day. It doesn't have to be 4 a.m. Right? Mm-hmm. It's pursue whatever your goals are. Pursue reading a book whenever you have 15 to 20 minutes. Who said that you have to spend 2 hours a day? 15 minutes is plenty. It's plenty to read and educate yourself. Just being content with your pursuit of mastery and kind of where you are is a game changer. And it means that it doesn't matter who's sitting on the other side of the table with you, because the outcome is just going to be what it is. I'm going to give you my best and I hope you accept it. But if you don't, that's okay, because there will be another opportunity with someone who's equally as powerful as you for me to do this, because I'm just going to keep pushing.
I love the fact that you teed this up, because I talk about on the podcast, we have different themes in the community each month. And our theme for October is mastering your craft. So like, I didn't even tell you that ahead of time, and you like perfectly segued into that. So that is awesome. The other thing I was going to say about the contentment is, I love what you were saying about that, because I'm always talking about retiring, and like the whole point of Imperfect Genius, like, and I told you this before, is about passive income and retirement for me. Like, it's just about, being able to just chill and relax. But when I talk to people about retiring, they're like, oh, you would be so bored. I'm like, no. I would be fine. Because again, I'm content. I'm just content to just chill. I'm like, no, I'm content. I don't need to go pursue something else. I am doing a lot of work. I mean, because business ownership takes a lot of work. So I'm doing a lot of work, but I'm doing the thing that I want to do because I want to do it. And I'm not answering to anybody but myself. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I don't need to go do whatever the thing is that you think I need to do right now. I'm good.
And that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Like, you feel relaxed and in focus and still as mentally sharp because you are still are you engaged in pursuit? No, not necessarily, but you are engaged in intellectual work, which is what this podcast is. You're engaged in continuing to push yourself in the areas that need to be pushed. Like, you're okay with that,
right?
That's what matters, right? Being okay with that. And it's like I think that the reason why people don't reach their goals, the Walmart greeter who wants to become an entrepreneur who makes 6-7 figures, be okay being a Walmart greeter first. Understand that the skill acquisition in greeting. Understand that the skills that you develop, turning someone from not wanting to speak to you at that door to actually being able to speak to you, is something that you can use if you master how to greet. You need to master every level that you get to before you can get to the level that you want to be at. Yeah. Part of the whole contentment, as I'm talking about it now, is being okay with where you are, mastering where you are, so that you can actually skill stack and get to a level that you want to be at.
Exactly. I'm reminded of so Render Atlanta is a big tech conference in Atlanta. So Afrotech is like a big tech conference that happens in Texas each year, and I consider Render Atlanta like the smaller version of that. But I went to Render in this past June, the Render Atlanta, and Kelsey Hightower was one of the guest speakers, and he was a distinguished engineer at Google, which is a very rarefied air in tech, like to be a distinguished engineer at Google. And he talked about like his pursuit to get there, but then immediately after he got there, he looked at his first paycheck as a distinguished engineer, and he was like, why would anybody pay anybody this much money? He was like, what is it that they want from me? Like, do they want like sacrifices? He's like human sacrifice. Like, why would anybody pay anybody this much money? He's like, that was his first thought was, and I should mention that Kelsey Hightower is a Black man. So again, to be a distinguished engineer, Black man, distinguished engineer at Google, very rarefied era in tech. And so he's like, so his first thought was, why would anybody pay anybody this much money? And his second thought was, what would I do to buy my time back? Shortly after achieving that like major milestone, he immediately was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. He's like, I want to go do my own thing. He's like, I want to take that money. I'm going to use this to buy my time back so I can go do what I want to do. And that's, that speaks to the contentment, and also like the master. He mastered this. He mastered all the skills. He's like, okay, now I'm going to decide what I want to do next. Like, he's like, I'm good. I'm content. I don't need to keep making this money. I reached the pinnacle. I reached what I wanted, and I've accomplished everything I wanted to do here. I'm going to now go do something else, So I just feel it speaks to the contentment. It speaks to the mastery, I think.
That's something that I believe happens a lot. Like once you get to a certain point, like you achieve some kind of credentialing, whatever the case is, it's like you feel proud of yourself, happy in the moment. But then it changes, right? Because like what's after that, right? This is why the pursuit of happiness is the pursuit of happiness. If the goal is happiness and for constant happiness, I think that's kind of like I don't want to say delusion, but like I think I don't think it's the right goal, because happiness is fleeting. It comes and it goes, right? There's joy and pain. We know that, but like contentment does not really leave once you achieve it. Like it's not really fleeting, because if you feel comfortable, it kind of sits with you, and it changes your perspective on everything. But if your goal is happiness and you're looking for it from like, a paycheck, from a person, from whatever the case is, it's I think it's the wrong way to frame kind of how to become a master at something.
Right.
To become a master at something or anything, I think you have to be content with the things in between. I saw something that was interesting that said, "What's the most important part of a chair?" Do you know? You ever heard this before?
I have not, and now I'm thinking about it. Well, I know you're going to give me the answer. I have not heard it before, and what is the most important part of the chair?
Give me one guess.
So literally, this is the way my brain works. I'm literally right now processing every part of my body that's touching the chair that I'm in and trying to decide like what is the point at which there's failure. What part, if it's missing, is going to cause me to fall on my ass right now? That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I'm like, I don't know. Can I count the frame? Is that too many parts? Like,
you can tell me whatever you want.
I want to say the frame. I'm debating between the frame and no, I'm going to go with the frame. I was debating between the frame and the back, but I'm going to go with the frame. What's the most important part of it?
So the answer is the most important part of the chair are the screws. They're hidden. You can't see them, but they play the most important part of the chair.
That is you're right. You're absolutely right.
It holds the whole thing together. And what's so funny is that like that becoming a master is that, right? It's the silent part that propels you to this level of exceptionalism that people can't actually understand. The hidden screws that hold it together, the things that are the hidden screws in a master's life are all the hours, the countless hours of repetitious doing of the work. It's the studying of the work. It's working with people to help them understand how to master it themselves. Teach someone else to become a master, you become a master yourself. It's the silent work. It's the silent stuff that's behind the scenes that actually is the power behind everything, right? It's the me staying in the hotel room when everyone else is partying and just kind of pouring over this information. My one question, the information I gleaned, and putting it into a framework, and holding that for a decade, like, and kind of seeing that work out. It kind of like, everybody wants to be at the end point, but like, I do business coaching and stuff like that. And so like people always ask me, well, how are you able to see this stuff? Well, I see it, gut feeling and intuition is really just 20,000 hours of practice of seeing things over and over again in various iterations and mastering the nuances of how to adapt to whatever the challenge is. And you kind of already get a sense of how to problem solve. It's preemptive problem solving in your head based off of your experience. That's all gut instinct and intuition is when it comes to like business or life, essentially, which is why the gut feeling of somebody who's 80 is going to be probably a little better than the gut feeling of someone who's, 40 or 50, right?
Right. Yeah. No, agreed. And I think when I think about that, I just think about like all the years of software engineering that I did in coding. It's like, when I look at it, if somebody comes to me with, oh, this program's not working, it's not doing the thing, like I've got, like you say, thousands and the hundreds of thousands of hours of coding under my belt. I'm like, oh, you probably did this. Like, oh, it's this. Like, and they're like, how'd you find that so fast? I'm like, I've seen it before. Like, it's not even it's like, I've seen it before. I can guess based on what's happening right now, what, the problem probably is, so.
Right. And it happens on a millisecond level where you do the math where you're going like 4, 5, 6 level deep. So here's the difference between a master and someone who is, I don't know, I guess expert level, or someone who is a proficient, is that a master thinks like 10 levels deep, and someone who's proficient thinks like 3, maybe 4. Someone who's an expert thinks 5 or 6, but a master goes all the way back to how it was built and then reverse engineers it back to what the problem is.
Right. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Well, Micah Logan, this has been a fantastic conversation. It started with, and the interesting thing for the, pulling the curtain back for the listeners is I literally came into this conversation with all I knew was he had a 2% chance of getting a trademark, and I had no idea where this conversation was going to go. So this has been an amazing conversation. And you even, like I said, you even tagged my theme, for which is mastering your craft, and I didn't even tee that up for you. So that was amazing. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's been a pleasure. Sometimes like when you have a podcast, when you're on a podcast, you want to have a good conversation. And I think this was it. I actually, my newsletter is actually called Small Business Mastery, because that's what's required to actually become proficient. You have to master small business. It takes time. Everybody wants to like all these like 20-year-olds selling like business turnaround stuff on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube is like, kid, please.
Well, speaking
have you ever struggled to meet payroll?
Are you asking me that question, or are you just saying?
No, not you. Saying? It's like that's why I think when I see these people, have you struggled to meet payroll? Have you had to make the choice between your lights, payroll, your kids eating? Like don't tell me about your 30-day, 45-second advice.
Right. Exactly. Well, speaking of, you mentioned that the name of your newsletter is Small Business Mastery. So let the listeners know how they can find you.
Yes, you can go to micah-logan.com and sign up for the newsletter if you like. I'll also provide a link for you for a sign up to the newsletter. It comes out every Tuesday. It literally just focuses on how to become a better business owner. And like you can literally build a library of what the newsletters are and, try to figure and develop your own structure and how you want to apply it to your organization. But it's just built off of all my experience, all the things that are required in business, ways to think, how to actually perform. It gives guidance. I have toolkits as well for like some of the aspects and some of the things that you might need to run businesses, to run your business. And I should note that I'm writing a book, and I'm writing a book called Your Business Will Fail. It's very negative title.
I'm like, wow. What's the subtitle? Give me some hope somewhere.
How you can be the exception and turn around your business.
There you go. Okay. That's what I needed to hear. Okay. I'm like, give me some hope. Give me something.
Well, I want people to say, what the heck is this? It's really about turning around the business and what you have to do to actually turn around your business. And it kind of gives my experience of business failure, like from early on, and kind of how I was able to turn it around, but also like a concrete step to make your business into a machine that it needs to be. I consider it the successor to the E-Myth. And that's why I decided to write it in this way, in the way that it is, so
cool.
Looking forward to that.
Very cool. And they can also check you out on the Common Sense Show on the Alive Podcast Network or their favorite podcast app, right?
Common Sense Show. I'm not sure. Is this backwards where you are?
No. It's forward. For those who are just on the audio, he's pointing at, there's a sign over his shoulder. So people on video see it, but he's pointing at the sign over his shoulder that says the Common Sense Show. It's not backwards. I can read it. It's good.
Okay. Common Sense Show.
For you?
CENTS, not sense like common sense, like sense like dollars and. It is backwards for me, which is tripping me out.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Good to know. All right. And then for me, you know what? I normally have a list of like upcoming stuff, but I didn't have the list prepared today. So I'll just say, go to imperfectgenius.com and whatever's going on, you can find it out there. I need to add an events page because I got some speed networking stuff coming up, that I need to promote. But until next time, thank you for listening. And this is Rachel Foster reminding you that while your journey may not be flawless, it can be phenomenal. We got